Hi, I'm Wendy Cicchetti. I'm an international astrologer, and I've been studying all about astrology for several decades now. And as I was studying and researching the energies of this full moon tomorrow, I thought it was important to be able to explain to people what was really happening and why it was so much more complex and difficult than your common full moon is. And we know that full moons are powerful. We know that they affect the tides, they affect our emotions. But this particular full moon is much more intense and powerful in that regard than what is normal. So what we're going to look at here is, first of all, let's take a look at the planets involved. We have the sun in Leo and the moon in Aquarius. Now, the sun in Leo represents warmth and exuberance, okay? The joy of life, heart energy. But the moon in Aquarius is cold. It's aloof. It's detached. Represents technology and AI. But these are fixed energies, okay, which causes polarization. In other words, both sides are very fixed about their attitudes and perspective, okay? So this creates some polarization. Now, the next complexity is the fact that we have Jupiter retrograde conjunct this moon. Now, remember, I've told you before that the moon is a neutral planet. It takes on the energy of what's around it. So Jupiter is very dominant right now and magnifies the energy of the moon. You know, Jupiter makes everything bigger, makes everything easier. So there's some duality here, as there are both positive and challenging energies with Jupiter retrograde influence, okay? So the moon represents people and their emotions, the people actually as a collective, okay? Jupiter represents greater intensity about those things, and it's a surge in emotional energy, which magnifies what is going on with the people and the emotions of the people, okay? Now, Jupiter also has to do with justice, and Jupiter retrograde has to do with the possibility of disclosure of injustice publicly, so it affects the people, okay? So we also have, with this surge in emotional energy, we also have a surge in meteorological influence on the earth. So bigger chance of earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes, and even volcanoes, volcanic activity, okay? Now, prepare for a very strong influence coming past this full moon. Now, because the moon is in Aquarius and at the 29th degree, within 2 hours after the moon, the full moon, the moon moves into Pisces, which is a very different energy. You know, we talked about the moon in Aquarius being aloof and detached and cold. Well, in Pisces, it's completely different. It's very compassionate. It also is very emotional and dramatic in the way it expresses, okay? So as the moon moves in Pisces, it's going to move directly into a conjunction with its ruler, Neptune, okay, on the 24th. Now, at that time, it's going to be in opposition to Mercury and Mars conjunction. Now, this is interesting because as we talk about what Neptune means, it's our beliefs, it's our collective insanity, it's confusion, it's illusion, and it's lies and fantasy, okay? So people may feel that their beliefs are being threatened. Now, as this is in opposition to Mercury and Mars, what have we got here? Mercury is our rational thinking. Mercury is our brain. Mercury is how we perceive things, okay? And it's next to Mars. And Mars is our impulsive, impatient, emotional responses to things, okay? People get really upset, that's Mars doing that. So we have this communication of anxiety and anger and impulsive things about our belief systems. And there's a lot of confusion about it. What one person may think may be completely different because we can't see the true picture right now. All we can hear is the collective noise. So we have to be very, very careful on the 24th, because if more information is disclosed and it is contrary to a lot of people's beliefs, there's going to be a lot of outcry, public outcry and communication. So be very careful. Also at that particular time, the weather is more threatening. Water with Pisces and Neptune, wind with Aquarius, and fires with Leo energy. So we could have more very intense weather at that point. 2 days after the full moon is not very much time before this intensity, and it's even more disruptive and intense than the moon itself. So watch the 24th. Be very cautious on the 24th, okay? Now, the next area of complexity has to do with the retrograde planets. And right now we have 5 planets in retrograde: Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. This makes the energy more concentrated and potent. It's a time to look at the past, to integrate what is truth, digest current situations. And Uranus just went retrograde yesterday, okay? And it's at 14 degrees and it's moving very, very slowly. This is a very big concentrated energy, okay? It's called earthquake energy. Now that can mean shocks, surprises, disclosures, disruptions, awakening, revelations, internet issues, sudden eruptive energies. The veil is becoming thinner and shaking up what no longer works. Awareness and caution are needed at this time. Okay, now the next one is Uranus in Taurus, and I've also talked about this before in my last video. And Uranus in Taurus rules money, agriculture, and the food supply. So we can expect disruption in the food supply and in money and in the flow of money. It can relate to disturbances in trucking and getting food to the stores, breaks in the chain of the supply of food, money, and resources. So this is a time to connect with local farmers, become as self-sufficient as you can, have supplies of food and water for several months. Disruptions can happen suddenly without very much warning. And remember too that this energy is going to be with us for a while, and that's why it's important to prepare, because Uranus is going to be in Taurus until 2026, okay? So, at any time something could change and erupt, so you need to be prepared. That's very important. Now let's talk about Mercury conjunct Mars in Virgo, and we didn't discuss the Virgo part of it before. Virgo is the analyst, always trying to find out what's true or factual or what's not true, okay? It sees the flaws in things, all right? It has to do with discernment and discrimination, okay? And so with Mercury conjunct Mars, we're looking at hard, impulsive communications about what people think is true and what isn't. Okay, now on the 24th, when we have the Mercury conjunct Mars in Virgo, we must use caution in our communications. Our beliefs, as I mentioned before, will be threatened, but do not react impulsively, as you may have to pay for that later. Stay calm and thoughtful and careful. Virgo is also about natural healing. So we have lots of natural healing methods going around right now, becoming more and more popular, which is very important for us at this time. There are going to be lots of changes that people aren't aware of, huge, massive changes in education, in medicine, in money, in government. All of those are going to be changing. So we want to be as prepared and be as self-sufficient as we can. Okay. Now the next one is this Mercury conjunct Mars trine Uranus retrograde in Taurus. This has to do with communications about changes in how you earn a living or make money. Many believe that something extraordinary or very important will be discovered when the moon conjuncts Uranus on the 28th of August. Okay? This may have very important repercussions, and it also represents the possibilities of some very drastic changes occurring. Okay? Something extraordinary may come forward at this time. Okay? So I want you to be very cautious and careful. Once again, some of these things may really hit the heart, really hit the belief system, and you have to just take a deep breath and sit back and try and stay out of these nasty third dimensional energies of fear, anxiety, hatred, anger, and find your center and your balance, because utilizing those things only strengthens the third dimensional matrix. Now, the final thing, which I've also talked about before, which is still very much in influence, which is retrograde Saturn square retrograde Uranus. Okay? Major long-term aspect it is. Huge changes and chaos. It's the old versus the new. The old order collapsing versus the new being created. It has to do with control versus freedom. Okay? Lots of drama, lots of disruption into 2022 and beyond. But remember, out of the chaos come the solutions. Okay? Leave the old behind. Where are you feeling limited? Many people are changing everything. They're just packing up, moving, quitting jobs, and going someplace new. So be thinking about that. What in your life needs to change right now? If you look at your astrological chart, see where Uranus and Saturn square Uranus hits your chart, where Uranus in Taurus hits your chart, what house it has to do with in your chart. And that will let you know what things will be changing in your life directly. We know it's changing on a global basis, but what focus is it in your particular chart? Okay? When you watch and observe what's going on in the world today, you have to look at it with neutrality, without judgment. Otherwise, you hurt yourself by getting too wrapped up in it. So stay out of all of the third dimensional fearful, low-frequency emotions. These are relentless forces. You must understand that radical change is inevitable. We will never go back to the way it was. So you've got to be and learn to be comfortable with change and prepare for it in advance and recognize that, just because you don't want it to happen doesn't mean it isn't going to happen. The power of prayer is really, really important. And prayer to the God of your understanding about having peace on earth and having your needs met as an individual and as a family is a very powerful and important method of creating the things that we need. So don't hesitate to be involved in prayer. Prayer for the world, prayer for your family, prayer for your neighbors. It can be very impactful and helpful. I don't think people in general really know that there are tens of thousands of people that pray in groups on a day-to-day basis to keep this planet safe and balanced. And they're praying vigilantly right now. And we want to be praying, for peace, but we want to be praying for the exposure of the lies and exposure of the corruption so we can see the truth of things. And the truth of things has been withheld from us for a long time. And so we want to have that understanding. Stay strong, stay vigilant. There are many changes and information still to come, but stay connected and we'll all be fine. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope this was helpful. Bye-bye.